Welcome to our next episode of
Fandom
Family
Chats.
This is a production of Family Fan Clubs on Facebook. You can find us all over Facebook. You can find us all over social media under Fandom Family Chats. Look us up, get dialed in, get plugged in, and get ready to listen to some crazy people talk crazy stuff.
Hey guys, welcome back to FFC. I'm Maureen.
I'm Eve.
And I'm Jeanette.
And tonight we are debuting our One Chicago episodes. We're starting our season 3, but we are talking about shows that are on a hiatus. Now we understand Chicago is not on hiatus, so don't panic when you see that that's in our hiatus section. But they have finished their finales, and we have just recently fallen into a deep obsession with them, and we really felt a burning desire to talk about them. So we had to put them in somewhere before the season starts. So this is our episode. We're talking about all 3 shows. We've got Med, we've got Fire, we've got Chicago, and let's talk about what we like about it. What's our favorite show? Kind of why we like them, how we got addicted to it. I know that Amanda, our one of our co-hosts, one of our leaders on the podcast, is the one that looped us all in to this obsession. I almost called it ridiculous and had to check myself.
Well, I mean, let's be honest, it's a little ridiculous, but we love it. We love it. It's fine.
I will say that when I started watching PD, I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. Like I got hooked real fast. I think it was right from the first episode. Usually it takes me a few episodes to get into a show, but right away in PD, I was obsessed with it. I was watching like 6 episodes a night. Those are long episodes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. It was the same way. And I mean, I started with Med. Like this was the first one that I started on. And it was the same way with that. Like I had seen here and there, I used to watch Med like a while ago, but then I don't know, I got off the habit of doing it, and I had seen like an episode of Fire here and there, an episode of PD here and there, but I started Med first because I was like, well, this is the one I remember enjoying the most. And I mean, I enjoyed it so much more starting from the beginning. I mean, by far my favorite medical drama, definitely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Med is a really easy watch because that's the one I started with also. But then I got through season 4. And then I'd already seen so many character crossovers from PD and Fire, so I got impatient. And then I switched to Fire, and then I started watching like a crazy person. So I was watching Fire and PD at the same time.
But then you were throwing Med in there.
And then I threw Med in there once it caught up to season 5. So then I was watching like all 3 at the same time. But I liked it because then when it got to crossovers, I actually cared about the characters from other shows and what was going on there, and it was easier to follow.
Didn't you hate having to go back and change shows on the Peacock though? I feel like that.
That's the only reason I didn't follow that model. That is literally the only reason why. Sheer laziness.
Because I'm always multitasking when I'm watching for the most part. So like I was like, I can't stop and have to change like.
Oh, not Chicago. No, if it's a new binge, I have to be sitting there not doing anything else. Like I'll put on an old favorite if I'm doing other stuff. But if it's a new binge, I have to be sitting there like watching it. I can't be doing laundry or making dinner or like anything else. I have to have my eyes glued to the screen.
And don't get me wrong, like when I would hear my favorites' voices, I'd immediately like, okay, I gotta stop what I'm doing and like absolutely watch this part. But
I think the first few episodes, not the first few episodes, first few seasons, I like couldn't take. It was surprised because it was the first show that I had watched where I didn't take my eyes off the screen, where it was just, of course I watched it in bed at night, and so I had to be very, very quiet because my husband would sleep through, and I would watch till like 5 or 6 in the morning, which really irritated the crap out of him. But
I did do that. Yeah.
I was actually just sitting there watching TV, and that's never happened to me on a show before. But then when I got to like season 6, I wasn't bored, but I would start playing games on my phone while watching because I couldn't stand to sit still anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you watch them that heavily, I think that's normal because I mean, sometimes your brain just needs a tiny little break from like, all of that. But
and I had watched PD before. I didn't realize it when you guys had said you have to watch these shows. But when I got back into it, I was like, hey, I recognize that guy, because for me, Jay was the one who stood out for me on PD because he was the one, the first time I was like, ooh, okay, I could get into this show. And so I remembered him, and I remember the sound of Voight. Now I don't remember his face, but I remembered the sound of his voice. And then I realized that I had watched it because it was one of those when you're watching a show and then automatically your show ends and it picks up another show that's similar. That's how I had watched a couple
Yeah.
episodes of PD before. So that's why I started with PD because that was the one that I had watched.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is like I remember when I first watched these like a long time ago, I tried with PD because of Sophia Bush, because huge fan of hers. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this. And I didn't really like it, which I don't know why, because it really surprises me. Like maybe, I don't know what my issue was. I remember that I liked Med and I liked Fire okay when I would watch them, but PD, I was like, I just can't get into these characters. But
I have a theory.
now they're like my favorite ones. Like, so I don't understand what I was thinking.
I think
don't
the
know.
theory, my theory is that it's because you started watching it for a girl that you had a crush on, but you didn't really connect with any of the dudes then.
I
But
didn't pay
this time
attention to
around, you've
Ruzik.
connected to the dudes.
Yes.
And then
I
you're
mean,
like,
don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, PD, I mean, it's the one, like on Med, I like lots of them. I have lots of favorites, you know, they're there. On Fire, there's a few that I care for, you know, there are other ones that I can take or leave them. There's really no one that I dislike on any of these shows. But PD is like the only one where I truly love every single person in the intelligent unit.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a couple that are a little bit higher ranking than others, but not by much. I mean, I love them all.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it ends up being my favorite, because I love them all.
I get a little possessive of them, I found.
Yeah.
Like
Me
when
too.
anybody, I don't even care if they're right, but if anybody else comes up to any of the people I like on these Chicago shows and they start to be mean to them or they start to talk down on them or try to correct them, like,
yeah,
who do you think you are? You don't get to talk to these people like that.
And I think we've mentioned this before. I also hate like during the like, you know, we have all these crossovers. So we see, you know, our people and all this. So when like let's take Med, for example, when a paramedic that is not Brett shows up at the hospital, I'm like, get out of here. Where's Sylvie?
It makes me so ridiculously angry because, and same, you know, all of them, like when a cop shows up on Fire.
Where's Burgess?
Like, well, what's wrong with the intelligence unit? Like, where are they?
Even when they show up to that, when the PD shows up to the hospital and there aren't doctors that I recognize from Med, like,
where's Dr. Halstead? Get him in here now. Yeah.
Why are they not a part of this? We know that they're available.
Yeah.
They're all under the same company.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't care what this doctor thinks. I need to hear what Dr. Halstead thinks.
Exactly.
He knows what he's talking about.
Exactly.
All right, so we all have our favorite shows, and admittedly, I have not watched enough of them. Now, what I like about the Chicago universe is there are a lot of crossover. What I don't like is that sometimes there are crossovers that the story starts on one show, but it doesn't continue on that same show. And so if you are binge watching the way I binge watch, it's like, wait, did I miss an episode? And then you're just like, well, for me, it was, I really do not want to mess up my Peacock order. So I'm just going to go without that information. And I'm just going to finish out this show. And then I'll jump on the other one and figure out later what happens. Wasn't a huge fan of that.
That's what I did though. When I watched Med, I did that and I was okay with it. I remember there was one episode and it was okay. I mean, so because I love Dr. Halstead, I've already said his name once here. Okay. I love him, love him, love him. And so there was one episode where like he gets like hit on the head by like someone who's like trying to spread this like crazy virus. That was the only time that I was like, okay, I've got to stop and go watch the episode of PD because like you can't leave me hanging what's going on with Will. And it's the only time that I did it. Now that I'm on to Fire and I've watched the other two shows, every once in a while, if I see there's a PD crossover, I just go watch it just because I hope that I can see Adam, or if there's a Med crossover, I'm just like, well, I can use this as an excuse to see Will. Might as well go watch that episode again.
I did the same thing because, you know, I watched the first 4 episodes of Med before switching over to Fire and PD. And then when I saw that there was a 3-episode crossover, or when I saw that Med was part of a crossover, I rewatched the episode of Med. And it was incredible how much of the episode I didn't remember just because I didn't know any of the PD characters or any of the Fire characters. So like there was a whole thing with one of the guys on Fire was in surgery on Med, and I didn't remember a single part of that storyline because I didn't know from any of the Fire people. I didn't care about them. So I guess I kind of just went over it. So
they were just another patient.
Yeah, exactly. as I was watching it, I was like, I remember zero of this. Like, I don't remember Herman ever having surgery anywhere. I don't think this ever actually happened. I think this is a new episode they just created.
Maybe they did just to mess with you specifically.
Just to mess with me. I'm certain that's what happened.
I like too, because I used to be a big SVU watcher. Like that used to be my show when I was in high school. Once I had kids, I had to stop watching it. Big shock. But once I had kids, like I was so stressed out when I would watch that show, because a lot of SVU, a lot of it is about girls getting raped and kids being lost, or which is weird because on PD there's an awful lot. That's my other complaint. Stop doing the kids storylines on PD so much, please, for the love of God. Stop showing me dead children.
Yeah.
It's hard for my little heart to handle. Like it's
tender age.
Yes.
That's what they always call it.
I know. There was a Shelby, I think she put in our chat, she's like, oh, that boy in the freezer. Oh, I just forgotten about that. Why don't bring that up
Thanks
again?
for the
That's
reminder.
horrible.
Yeah.
But I did like that, because Benson was my favorite on SVU. So I liked that. But that was another one where that was the Nadia storyline. My husband and I were watching it. We went to the next episode and he's like, wait, what happened? And then I had to get in the chat, be like, where is this episode? Because it wasn't on Fire or Med.
Nope, it was on SVU.
On SVU.
Yeah.
So I think that's it's something that other shows aren't able to do.
Right.
So that's a cool kind of thing with this. It's frustrating for binge watchers and people who aren't watching it in real time and are actually going to watch the next live episode of the next show.
Yeah, that's why I watched it like a crazy person. So unless you're insane like I am, you're gonna miss out on stuff.
I'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
I'll get to those episodes on the other
You'll
one.
get there,
You'll get there somehow. That's all that matters.
I just really like that on Peacock. I can go down one and go to watch next episode of this, but I can't. I had to constantly switch between shows. I got to get out of it, and I'm so lazy that I don't want to do that. So we all have our favorites. Mine is PD, obviously. I blew through that one fairly quickly. What is everyone else's favorite?
Mine's PD with close follow-up by Med. I mean, it's close for me.
Mine is Fire.
It is, okay. We are still going to talk about Med because it is still an excellent, phenomenal show. Yeah. But for me, it doesn't compare to PD for me.
I think once you get in it and watch it, it may still not compare, but I think you're going to really love it, actually.
Because I like actually a lot of those characters I've seen on other things, or those actors. And I like those actors. And this is actually the first series, really, that I haven't followed because a Gilmore Girl character was in it.
Oh.
Because it's The Resident was because Matt Zuckery was in it. The Handmaid's Tale was because Alexis Bledel. Parenthood was Lorelai.
Yeah.
Lauren. And then Even This Is Us was because of Milo.
Well,
there's very few shows I watch are just because I'm interested in this kind of show.
I just kept harassing you because you decided to watch this one. Didn't I just send you pictures of Adam and like Jay and like,
just Adam.
That's probably accurate. Yeah.
just Adam.
And it worked, right? It worked.
To be fair, that's not why I watched it. To be fair, I watched it because all of you guys are talking about it and I felt I want to join in this conversation. So I just started watching. That's the quick, like with Stranger Things, you notice I'm asking questions about it now because now every one of you is talking about it. And
you're going to watch it.
I want to be included in the conversation.
You're going to love it. You got to watch it. This has lots of humor. So I think the humor will balance out the other stuff.
That's what I need in everything I watch, is that there has to be some sort of humor.
Oh my God. Dustin and Steve. And like, there's so many that they're hilarious. You'll love it.
I think that's actually why I like Ruzick so much, is because he makes,
that's not the only reason.
He's pretty, but he makes me laugh. I like how in the beginning of PD, whenever he said that he found this piece through tech, everyone looked at him, he's like, fine, I had this guy do it. But now he's doing the tech stuff himself all the time and no one questions it. But there was where did he suddenly learn how to do all that?
I wondered that too, because like he's the tech guy. I mean, anytime they need like something bugged or like taken off, ever since they've gotten rid of like I know.
I loved him.
I did too. Yeah, he's been the tech guy.
Even with like looking up information, he was never able to do that. Like he didn't even understand how to do it before.
Maybe Mouse gave him lessons when we weren't looking.
Maybe. Okay.
Mouse taught him his ways before he jetted off.
All right, so we each have our favorites, and let's go into them one by one. Let's kind of break down what each show is about and the good things about each show. Now, next week, or our next episode rather, you're going to get our character favorites. So that is coming. This episode is not about the characters, although it's going to be a struggle. We're going to bring up characters.
No
But
promises.
we're not going to focus on the
Okay.
characters this episode. So let's start with Med, since that is the one
Okay.
that's the oldest, isn't it?
No, it's the newest.
Oh, is it really?
Mhm.
That has what,
It's-
7 seasons?
7.
Yeah,
Okay.
7.
PD has 9, Fire has 10.
The Med
Yes.
has 7.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, let's see. So, I mean, Med is just, I mean, I guess they brought it on. I guess the big tie-in is obviously, you know, Jay's brother, Will, is a doctor and the ED at Gaffney
We
Medical.
just wanted to bring him up again.
Well, I mean, he's the tie-in, don't you think? I think
Yes,
he
he
is.
is.
But no, I mean, it just kind of centers like what I like about Med that I said is my favorite medical drama is that there's like, you know, when you look at like Grey's Anatomy, it's a lot of romantic drama. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. You look at The Resident, there's not a whole lot of personal life stuff. It's more just about the medical. This one sort of is, in my opinion, the perfect mixture of relationship and, you know, romance, but also like the cases and the patients that you're,
Mhm.
you know, having to try to figure out what's wrong with them when they come in. And that's what I like. I mean, that about PD too. I like the mystery of those, that it's, you know, these
Yeah.
patients come in and you're kind of with the doctors trying to figure out, well, what's wrong with them? And like, what are we going to do? And I mean, they've got, I mean, all the characters again on this show. I mean, all of them are so good. I mean,
Mhm.
there's even the ones that aren't good, you still somehow like them. And I think that's what all of One Chicago does really well, is like it really makes you like feel like you know these characters and
Yeah.
like you know about their lives and I don't know, you get attached.
I think Dick Wolf does that really, because he does all the SVU ones too.
Yeah.
And I think even on those shows, he does a really good balance, because what you really want to know about these shows is the meat of it. So like in the episode where they're trying that virus,
Mhm.
I think they did a really good job focusing, because that was, the police had to be involved in there.
Mhm.
And even on PD, they were still going into the medical side. They were still going into the hospital. They were still spending time there with the Med characters, with the PD characters not present, even though it was a PD episode.
Yeah.
So I think that he does a really good job giving us the meat of everything that we want, all the good stuff of everything that we want.
No, I agree. I think that's what makes it unique. It's what makes it
Mhm.
stand out, you know.
And you look at his track record, all of his stuff has super long, like SVU has been on for how many years now?
Like 20 or
Yeah.
something. I mean, like a really long time.
Yeah, I was thinking of starting SVU, and then I saw how many seasons there were, and I was like, nah.
No.
Like,
We'll
nah, I
just
think
watch that one Nadia episode. I'm out.
those 2 episodes I had to watch of SVU were brutal, so I think I'm out.
And they're all like that.
They are. They're all.
I mean, they
That's
are.
probably why they moved it to SVU, is because SVU is a lot more
Mhm.
emotionally damaging
Mhm.
than PD is, or Fire or
Absolutely.
Med. But I do like that. I mean, I suppose it's not a good thing necessarily, but all of these shows, Men included, there's always something they could do a story on.
Mhm.
There's always different topics. There's always,
Mhm.
you can pull from real life, you can pull from your imaginations, you could add things in. But I think he does a really good job, especially on Med, with being a little more realistic, a little
Mhm.
more gritty than your typical medical show.
One thing that I like about it, and I think I've even said this to you all before too, is that like, not to compare to like some of our other shows, but like, you know, I mean, comparing to like The Resident, like it's not very messy. And I feel like even when they're in the ED, I mean, like on Chicago Med, I mean, there's blood. I mean, it feels realistic to me. Like I feel like I mean, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know if it is realistic, but it feels that way. Like when I watch it, it feels more realistic than any of the other ones that I watch.
I feel like all the shows are like that. Like I feel, I mean, from my expansive knowledge on how fire stations work,
Yeah.
you know, Fire just seems, for some reason that I can't put my finger on, Fire just seems more realistic than the other ones I've watched, like 911, which will always hold a special place in my heart.
Absolutely.
But Fire just, I don't know, Fire just seems more realistic.
They're different. And I think
So,
that's, yeah.
any listeners, if you know how things actually go in a firehouse, please let us know if
Is this realistic?
if that's true, because
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah. But you know, something else that I love about Med that is different than the other medical dramas is Dr. Charles, because like I don't know that
Yes.
there's any other medical dramas where we really focus on like the psychological and psychiatry department. I
Yeah,
mean,
because
that's
on Grey's Anatomy,
Mm.
if like for example on Grey's Anatomy, if they have a patient who could possibly be a psych patient, they just say, oh, let's do a psych consult. That's it.
Mhm.
We don't get to see the psych consult. We don't get to see what happens after that. But having Dr. Charles, it
Those are
kind of
some-
adds another layer to it where you can actually, I need him to help me come make sense of my life, because every time I hear him talk, I'm like, yeah, that is how I feel. Oh, wait, I'm not that person. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's one of the actors that I absolutely adored even before starting this. Back, I mean, I don't know, I'm showing my age. Three Musketeers, I remember him from that movie and I loved him, but that's what I always think of. But no, like, I mean, the psychiatry department, those cases, in my opinion, are usually the most interesting.
They're fascinating. I love those cases. Every time when it gets to the point where I'm like, this might be a psych case, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Call Dr. Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the best.
I agree.
I think he's my favorite there.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said my favorite's Will, but Dr. Charles is there too. I mean, like I love him.
There's a Chicago Justice.
Oh, not for long. I didn't even
It
bother
lasted
watching
for
it.
13 episodes. It wasn't
Yeah.
even a full season.
That's
Oh,
where
okay.
Antonio, remember he went to work.
So they
in
tried
the-
giving him his own headlining show and it didn't pan out.
I think they were trying to use him as the way to cross over into that, and it just didn't. So that's why he came back. It didn't work out.
Yeah, I got really excited when I saw a fourth one. I was like, oh, another to watch. And then I saw it lasted 13 episodes.
Yeah, so I didn't even watch them.
I was like, I won't waste my time with that one.
Mm-mm.
I do. Dr. Charles is my favorite. Because
Mhm.
again, I have not caught up on the other two shows, but PD is the one I've watched. But he made less appearances as the seasons went on. And I
Mhm.
actually found that the med team made less appearances on PD as the seasons went on. Because when they would go to the hospital, I didn't recognize anybody from med
I
in the
know.
later seasons. But he was one who I would love when he got on, because I love Oliver Platt. Like, he's one of my
Mhm.
favorite people. I'm looking up right now, trying to think of the movie specifically that I think of when I see him, because he
I
plays
think of
it.
Three Musketeers. Like I know what it is.
I
With
love
Chris
Three
O'Donnell,
Musketeers.
because I loved that movie.
Yes, but he played Dr. Doolittle. That's what I always think of, because he plays this self-serving, selfish guy, and that's the personality I always think of him with. So when he came on PD, I was like, oh, and it took me a minute to figure out if he was going to be good or not good. But he was also in Betty and June with Johnny Depp.
Oh,
He
it's
played
been a long
Eric.
time since I've seen that one.
I'm going through his IMDb thing, so I made it sound like I knew that, but I just looked it up.
I actually knew. I mean, like, there's quite a few people that I feel like I knew that are on med. the
Beethoven,
actors.
that's where I first saw him, was Beethoven.
Oh, who is he in Beethoven?
Plays Harvey.
I remember that now.
That was
Fun.
where I first saw him.
I tell you, another person I got excited about though when I first started med is Dr. Choi, even though he's not my favorite now. Because of Tokyo Drift, I was like, ooh, that's DK.
See,
I
now
like
that's
it.
one thing I was going to bring up, because the other thing, and this is similar to kind of what 911 does, although I don't think they think people will notice, because they did it with Mark Elias.
Yeah.
And he was he was the runaway groom on 911, and then he became an EMT on 911 Lone Star. But Dr. Choi, he played the leader of a Chinese gang in PD.
He did.
And then
He
and then a couple episodes later, he was talking to Voight in a medical scrub. I know the guy. It was just like 2 episodes later though.
Because I had watched Med first. Like, let's see who else. What's her name? The dark-headed nurse. Doris, is that?
Doris, yeah.
She is a nurse at a nursing home on PD in one episode.
Oh, really?
And then she's a nurse. And then the blonde-headed nurse that was on there for a little while, the younger one. Can't remember her name either, because she was only on for a
Monique.
couple. Yes, see, you're better with this. Monique. She's like a CI or something, or like, I don't know. Like I noticed because I watched Med first, and then when I started watching PD, I noticed I'm like, hey, there's so-and-so.
And then
That's not them.
something interesting they did too was there was a CI of Hanks at the very, very, very beginning. She was played by what's her name from Friday Night Lights? Becky.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
From Friday Night
Yeah.
Lights. She appears eventually on Fire, the actress appears on Fire, and she plays that character's sister.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was so confused because I knew that Chili was a character on Fire. So when I saw her, I'm like talking to Antonio. Or
So
whoever she was
yeah,
talking to,
she
I'm like,
plays two different characters within the universe,
"What?" Mhm.
but then those characters are sisters. I thought
And-
that was pretty interesting that they did that.
You have such long running shows that you can pull that with actors who have a good rapport with the cast who just showed up for
Mhm.
one episode, and that's the benefit to having a 3-show universe that are spanning. Eve counted that we have 26 seasons to watch if you want to watch all through all 3 shows. So I mean, that's a lot of cast members to go through for one episode. And I
Mhm.
think there are a lot of crossovers, right? Does Med have a lot of crossovers with Fire?
Yeah.
Fire,
I mean-
Fire and PD cross over with each other the most.
Mhm.
I would say Med has only had official crossovers maybe 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I think we see, like you said, I mean, I think all of the shows stopped having a lot of these crossovers in later seasons.
I think it was a COVID thing.
Probably. But I mean, I think you see, like I was talking about the paramedics, I think you see them quite all, I mean, not a lot, but enough that like even like when you're watching that, like you get to know, you're like, oh hey, that's so and so from Fire. So I think
Yeah.
there's
They have minor character crossovers every
Okay.
once in a while. Like if the Fire people like come across a crime, like Haley will sometimes drop by. And I'm always upset because it's not Adam, but you know, at least it's someone from intelligence.
On Med?
On Fire.
Oh, okay. And on Med, like what kind of diagnostics do we see? Do we see like really crazy far out ones? Do we see more realistic? Because the ones that I've seen have been more realistic. I think the most far one, but again, I haven't started Med. I just watched the crossovers. The most adventurous I've seen was that virus one. But
there's
even
a
that felt pretty
few-
grounded.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few that are out there, but they do it in a way that even the doctors are like, well, this is something that you don't see. I mean, like they don't treat it like it's just like, oh, this is so and so. You know, I read about. I mean, they make it
Yeah.
out like can't be like I've never seen this before. So I think they stay pretty grounded on most of their stuff.
Okay.
And something I like too is the doctors go head to head a lot, like arguing over the right kind of treatment, which you don't typically see on other shows. Usually it's one doctor. For the record, I don't understand in what universe someone goes to the emergency room and manages to see 2 doctors within 5 minutes of being there.
Yeah, that part is not realistic.
It's like
maybe we don't.
in real life, you wait there all day long and maybe you'll see a doctor.
Maybe for like 2 minutes, and then they're out, and you never see them again. Yeah.
But yeah, the doctors will sometimes go head to head arguing on different kinds of treatments. And it's usually, I would say 99% of the time, it's Will and then one other person. But
He's got to
you know,
fight for his patient.
and you know, Sharon said it in the most recent season. You know, he goes all in. He makes really rash decisions, but it's always because he believes in. It's because he's doing what's best for his
cares
patients.
about his patients. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do see a lot of the doctors arguing over the right kind of treatment. And I'm sitting there like, I don't know. You both seem to know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna go with the pretty redhead every time. I think
He just has really nice hair. So
he is
I'm-
the best hair.
obviously he has the best
I
medical
do
option.
wish I had his hair.
Beautiful. I just want to touch it.
And that was
Run my
before I was
fingers
bald.
through.
I wish I had his hair. So
I wish I had his hair. All of it.
does Med stay mostly in the ER?
Yes.
It's all yeah, that's what it's centered around is the well, they call it ED. But yeah, they it's centered around the ED doctors. That's pretty much what it's all about.
I mean, like there's surgeons. Oh, you know what, Maureen? This just popped in my head. It's a super random thought because we mentioned surgeons. Did you realize though, you were talking about following because there was a Gilmore Girls actor. Mr. Huntsberger is a surgeon for a little while. Not Logan Huntsberger.
I was gonna say what?
Mitchum. Mitchum. Except for we really like him. We like him.
I don't mind Mitchum as much as the average person does.
I was rather
Shira that I
confused.
hate.
Ugh, for sure.
I was
Yeah.
very confused when I saw him on Med. I was like, oh, we're supposed to like this character.
So see, there is a Gilmore Girls actor.
And I didn't even try to get there that time.
But we're
So
there.
it still counts.
And I think what I like about that aspect of it is because you see these shows that they're showing all these different departments, all levels of the hospital.
Mhm.
It makes it really hard to really connect with the characters season after season after season after season.
Yeah.
And I like that they stick with one department, because I mean, the emergency room does need surgeons sometimes, so you will see them. They just may not be regular, but they do need surgeons sometimes in emergency situations.
Mhm.
They do sometimes need the psych doctor for emergency situations. So I like that's the best way to get all the excitement from the entire hospital without having to focus on all of these other characters, except for the main ones that show up day after day after day after day.
Mhm.
Smart.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of why I like PD so much,
Mhm.
is because I get to see these people every single day.
Yes.
Well, the average person doesn't see them every single day. I happen to see them
We
every
did.
single day until I went through 9 seasons.
And now, wait, you're going to go through withdrawals because it's been like probably a month since I finished it. And I still, every once in a while, I'm like, I really kind of just want to watch an episode of PD because I miss them.
And PD, now it's what I like about PD too is kind of the same thing where it focuses on the intelligence unit, but it does also occasionally bring in other characters. I mean, at the very start of the show, we see Kim and Kevin, who start off as beat cops.
Oh, yeah.
So it's we focus on the intelligence units, but it also highlights how the entire department has to work together. So you occasionally see the other departments. You occasionally see other characters from different aspects of the police department coming into to work and to talk.
Mhm.
And I like the excitement that the intelligence unit brings with the different cases, the heavy cases, the hard to solve cases.
Mhm.
Although my game towards the end was, I'm going to figure this out before they do. That was what I really try hard to do.
I never did though. I
I
mean,
did.
like, no, I never figured it out.
That one where it was the patrol officer was the one raping those girls and beating them.
Oh,
I knew that the moment they talked to him, I was like, ah, it's him.
I think I did kind of figure. He just looks sketchy. I think I figured that one out a little bit.
But then there's also like, I get really defensive of the show because it's my favorite. And because these are my people, that when you kill off one of my people, it takes me a very long
I'll
time
even talk
to
about it.
recover.
Casey Jones.
Oh my gosh, that was the hardest TV death I've watched, I think, that I can remember offhand anyway. I can't think of another TV death that was harder for me.
Well, I can, but
And I knew it was coming too.
Yes.
And still
Yep.
covered my eyes. I was like, no, he's gonna be okay. He has to, even though I know that he dies, but he has to be okay.
Yes. And I looked up when it happened, but I kept thinking it was the episode I was on, and it wasn't for a couple episodes. I thought they weren't gonna but they dragged it out so long. So every episode, I was just like hyperventilating, waiting for it to happen. Oh my
You
gosh.
you were torturing yourself every episode, Maureen.
I was stressed, man. I knew it was going to happen too, and I was like, I don't want to get to this episode. Like, I don't want to do it.
None of you traders told me about it though. I accidentally found out on my own when I was looking up Nadia and what happened to
I
her.
wasn't going to tell you when you're over here talking about how much you love Casey Jones as much as I do, and I'm like, no. Like,
I remember
can't
sending in
tell
all
this.
caps to the chat. Alvin dies.
You know, I was gonna say, are we? I keep saying Casey Jones. I feel like we're gonna have to explain to people like what we're talking about.
Okay, so Jeanette
All
and I
these
are
young
old.
kids are gonna be like, huh?
And we first fell in love. I think that's why it was such a hard character death for me, because one, I freaking love Alvin. I mean, he's amazing.
He's the best. Yeah.
But I fell in love with him first when he was Casey Jones on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 90s. So like the very first episode I saw, he came on there. I was like, oh, someone please tell me that you recognize what Alvin is from. And Jeanette was the one who was like, that's Casey Jones.
I feel like I had already tried to bring this up to Eve and Amanda before you started, and they were like, who? I'm like,
Yeah, because when I first started watching, she was like, you know who that is, right? And I was like, I've never seen this man before. And she said,
Instantly knew who he
Casey
was.
Jones. I was like, who the heck is Casey Jones?
Even my husband, like, so when he died, I was emotionally volatile. Like I was like sobbing, crying. I've heard this described on another show before, not from me, but my husband came in the room. He's like, what is wrong? Alvin just died. He's like, who? I said, Casey Jones. He went, oh, really? He died? Like,
I love that he got that.
That's the only way. And then whenever I would say Alvin, he'd say who? And so I just started saying Casey died.
Casey
He's like,
Jones,
oh, Casey Jones. Yeah. Like, he couldn't make the connection. He knew him so firmly. I mean, it was 4 movies of Casey Jones. He knew him so firmly from that. He couldn't make the switch to Alvin.
That was our child. Yeah, no, that was our childhood. He was Casey Jones. Yeah.
And I think so. I think PD has a lot of my old school favorites and a lot of that feel, because even going into the precinct, it's not like new age. It's not like upbeat. And even when Mouse tried to bring up the computer system or their system, their board, trying to make it all techie, and they're like, this isn't us, take that away. I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love that they still use the whiteboards and they still tape up pictures, void taping up the picture to the tech board. I love that they did that. And I think that's why I connect with that show so much, is because it feels authentic, but it feels my speed.
No, I agree. I like that too. And you talk about Hank though.
Can't focus on the characters.
No, I know. All I was gonna say, like, I mean, it's like, this is something that, like, with the crossovers, like, sometimes it's weird, like when a character like is first introduced somewhere else, because like we said, I watched Med, then PD, and then I'm not finished with Fire, but I've maybe like 7 seasons. Hank is like not the same at all. Like, I adore Hank Boyd. I mean, like, I love everything about him, but on Fire, he's mean. Like, and not like mean like he is on PD. Like, he's mean. Like, it's bad. I almost wanted to just skip over like all those parts, because I was like,
Does he show up in season 1 of Fire?
Yes.
Because Fire is 10.
Oh, is it
PD
season
is
1?
9, so he's got to be in that first episode of Fire.
I think he was in the first season of Fire, and that's where I first saw Hank, was on Fire. And I think part of the reason that he's just so despicable on Fire, compared to PD, where he's just wonderful, is because we don't get any of his motivation on Fire. On Fire, he's first introduced as a bad guy who is just messing with Casey and nothing else. But then you get to PD, and you kind of learn more of his backstory. You get to know him and love him. And then you're like, oh, okay, so now I understand why he was that way on Fire. Whereas on Fire, he's just a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, and once you get to know like Justin and how Justin was troubled, and this is, Hank trying to keep him out of that trouble. I mean, it makes a little more sense. But then again, I mean, I don't know. Maybe
that first episode I watched, I remember being like, did he just kill that guy? And Jeanette's response was, yeah, he does a lot of that, but don't worry, it's for the right reasons.
But it is.
But that's what you don't see of him on Fire, is that you don't see that he's not really a bad, he does bad things.
He kind of is a bad guy on Fire.
I know, but
he
does bad things for right reasons, we come to see in PD. So it's,
yeah, I mean, it's for his kid, I guess.
He's always well-intentioned. He just doesn't always carry out his plans terribly effectively.
And the other thing is, like, within the intelligence unit, they have to have so much trust in each other in what they're doing, and you get to see that breakdown and come back several different times. And you get to see that they're human. I mean, that's that rule of there's absolutely no dating within my unit alter several times.
Which, I mean, and that's kind of a crazy rule, considering how much time these people don't have time for a personal life outside of this unit. So obviously, this is why poor Kevin's the lone wolf, because there's no women left for him.
That man a relationship in season 10, for the love of God.
He needs it.
Please.
My goodness.
We've literally focused on everyone else's relationships except for Kevin.
Although I'm gonna need Burzek back first. Then Kevin, you can have your happily ever after. But I'm gonna need that first, please.
Well, Kevin had that one lady that lied, Celeste, who he lied to about being a cop, which made me insane.
That was like so weird.
It was so dumb. But
I told her from the beginning. Yeah, I got it, but I was still frustrated because I was like, you could have had your happily ever after if you just told this poor woman that you were a cop.
That's not true either, but he shouldn't have hid it from her, because she would have.
I think if he had told her, I think they could have worked that out. Like,
I think she would have done exactly what he thought she was going to do.
I think she would have then come back to it.
I think she still will.
Yeah. Well, I've heard rumors that the character's supposed to be back, so I like her, so I hope so. We'll see.
I hope so too.
I liked her character, so
I know we're digging into the character, but I just gotta say one more thing. I started
okay.
with Casey Jones.
It's okay.
Again, this is the only show I've watched of these, so this is the one I'm most passionate about. But
It's the one I'm
with
most
that,
passionate about too, so it's
he
okay.
said to her, she said, why didn't you tell me? He's like, you would run. She's like, no, I never would have. Yes,
You might have.
would.
Yeah.
You would be doing the exact same thing you're doing now, but now you have an excuse to do it because what he did was weird. But you would have done the
Well-
exact same thing before. You just didn't have a reason for it other than I'm a hypocrite.
I think we were going to give him Vanessa too until COVID hit, and I think the actress didn't return after that because I was really like feeling that.
I got
too.
vibes there too.
Yeah, I love Vanessa. And then I got to the next season. I was like, wait, where'd she go?
I feel bad because I really liked her, but I did not notice she was gone until somebody said, hey, I think it was Eve said, where's Vanessa? Oh, yeah, she's not in here. I did like her. I just didn't notice when she was gone.
But you know who else needs some loving? I just got to go ahead and throw this.
Voight.
Hank Voight.
That's right. He is actually the one whose relationships we've never seen.
I so wanted him with Olivia Benson.
Where is
guys.
Sam? I did want him with Olivia too, but
And
where's
then Sam? I
where's
don't know,
she?
'cause I was feeling that too.
She hasn't been there since her son died.
Well, yeah,
That was
I know.
season 8,
I know.
right? That was the end
I
of season
guess.
8, right?
Yeah, it's the end of season 8 because that's when Kim gets shot and all that craziness.
I did like him with Olivia though. I like that fire, but
Oh, I wanted that so much because I always wanted Benson to have some like relationship
Mhm.
stuff too. So that would have been perfect.
yeah,
Still
And
hope for it, right?
Olivia.
She's still single,
eh,
right?
I think Olivia's too good for Hank.
Maybe she could help him.
She didn't take his crap.
Nope.
I mean, there was that aspect of it. So on PD, we see a lot of hard cases, drug cases. I like that they shake it up, which it's not because you get some of these inner city shows, right? Chicago's can be an inner city. You see a lot of the same people groups targeted. This show does not focus on one people group doing all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
I liked that. I like
Yeah.
that they go to all these different groups, all these different possibilities. I do like that they were putting in some of the current climate stuff into there.
Mhm.
I think some of it they hit a little too hard, but I like that they did not bring up COVID, not once.
No,
I
they just roll
enjoyed
with it.
Yep, I enjoyed not seeing that at all. They talked about the current climate for cops, but it's not so in your face that it's like, oh,
Right.
I don't want to watch the show anymore.
Yeah, they didn't whack us over the head with it.
Mhm. Yeah. Even Med, not to go backwards here, but even Med, I mean, like, obviously they had to talk about COVID
Yeah,
because it is
They're
what
medical.
it is. But they had their COVID unit and then like they moved past it to where it wasn't the focus of everything after a couple episodes. It wasn't a lot.
They referenced COVID every once in a while.
Mhm.
They said, oh yeah, because of COVID, I couldn't, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But they didn't, it wasn't like Grey's Anatomy where the
The
entire
whole season.
season was all COVID and nothing else. And then you just said this season is terrible.
Yeah. And it also wasn't like The Resident where like you had a couple episodes and then we jumped in the future like it never existed kind of thing. So I think that was nice too, that it was like you knew it was happening, you knew it was there, but like it wasn't.
It was reality with offering an
focus of-
escape from it.
Mhm. Yeah, I liked it.
And I think that's what PD is for me. I think it's real life things, but it offers an escape from reality at the same time. Because you get so invested, you get so engrossed. I like that some of these I like that PD is able to take some storylines and carry them over a couple episodes.
Yeah.
But still within every episode, there is a new storyline that they finish out in that episode and then go on to something else
Mhm.
while being able to carry over some storylines. I liked that. I like that that's how it's set up. And as for the crossovers, I actually found that with PD, I really missed when I didn't get those crossovers in the last 3 seasons or last 2 or 3 seasons. I missed them.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed because in the beginning we saw a lot of fire and I
Mhm.
enjoyed seeing the fire crew come on. We saw the guys from Med and I enjoyed seeing them there. And then when they stopped, it was just kind of,
Yeah.
I didn't like seeing them deal with any other fire station. I didn't like seeing them deal with any other doctors. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Hopefully I hope that we're gonna get back to that maybe.
I hope so
I think we
because,
will.
I'm sick of everyone being in their own little box. I need them to start, I need to, because I loved seeing them also hang out a lot at Molly's
Mhm.
because you would see characters from every show just sitting at one table
Like in the
together.
background. And it was
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
That is one thing I really, really missed is the last couple seasons, PD stopped going to Molly's. Like, this is not your bar. I don't know this bartender that you suddenly all know and are very, very close with. I don't know him. he's not really your friend.
Well, I mean, in Adam's defense, he had to go to that other bar because he couldn't really sleep with any of the bartenders at Molly's. They all know Kim, so this wasn't going to work out.
But then the others started going there too. You don't ever see them at Molly's. You don't see them there. I would like to see more crossovers because it would make it much easier for us to track them all down when we're in Chicago. That's my take on it.
That is the only reason that we need more crossovers.
I just need at least a crossover filming the last weekend there, or I guess what, the 22nd through the 25th of September. We're gonna need y'all to film together, please.
Dick Wolf, we know you're listening. So here's just a little tip for you.
It's gonna have to be an infield med day.
Yes.
They're just gonna have to leave the hospital for a day.
Yeah,
They've done it
like
before, they'll do it again.
Yeah, like
Will's
a
going to
race or a concert or something, you know?
Will's going to be needed in the field somehow. Just make that happen.
Please. Please. Just Will. You know what? No, not just Will. We need Will and Crockett. I'm gonna need both of them to please be out there.
I do like him.
I could listen to I told Shelby before, I could listen to that man read the phone book. Like,
in his Cajun accent.
Boy, yeah. Like, I could listen to this man talk all day long. I don't care what he's talking about.
Agreed.
And I think, as we've said, there's a ton of crossover in the first, is it 6 seasons before they cut out? Because I feel like it's the last 3 seasons of PDs when the crossovers really stop.
Probably something like that.
So we see a lot of fire. And that's actually where I fell in love with some of the fire characters, because I'm now making my run through fire. And PD is where I fell in love with a lot of those characters. I
became really, like, oddly obsessed with Severide and Stella from when I saw a crossover back when I was just binging Med. And that's when I started to get really impatient. I was like, I need to stop and watch Fire because now I'm obsessed with these characters and they're not showing them anymore. So that's mainly why I switched over to Fire. But as far as Fire goes, I think the reason I like it so much is because I like the ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
So I like their team as a whole. But then when I look at PD or Med, there are, like, I love all the characters. It's the individual characters I love more, but then on Fire, it's the ensemble that I love.
I was surprised to see that when we first get into Fire, there's a lot of animosity between, what is it, the rescue team and what is the other team called?
It's mostly animosity between Casey, who's on Truck,
and Severide,
and then Severide, who's on Squad.
Rescue. Oh, I thought it was called Rescue. Okay.
And I'd have to go back and rewatch because my head was spinning at the very beginning with the insane amount of characters they were trying to introduce all at the same time.
A lot.
But I think the reason for that initial animosity was because of the death of their friend at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, because right before he died, they were joking with each other.
Yeah. Fire starts with the death of Andy Darden, and then we find out in a later, actually in the current season. So in season 10, his kids come back into the fold. That's a whole other storyline that
I'm mad about it because they're gonna take my Casey away, but it's okay.
Yeah, but his kids come back into the fold, and then Casey kind of explains exactly what happened leading up to this guy's death. And as it turns out, it was a miscommunication between Squad and Truck.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the animosity between those two lieutenants. But
that one, somebody didn't bend the roof on that one, right? And that's something that happened to him. And I'm like,
yeah, I think Casey thought that the roof had been vented, and it hadn't.
No, he didn't, because he told Andrew. He said, "No, don't. We have to wait for a vent." And then it was right as he was hitting the window, and then he went, "See, it's fine."
Always that venting of the roof.
And I think because it didn't blow back right away, that he thought, okay, the roof must be vented, but he didn't think it was at first.
But the animosity between those two guys, I was like, I swear, if this is all the show is these two lieutenants just snapping at each other all the freaking time, I might have to give up on this show.
Yeah.
But luckily that didn't. I think Severide and Casey go through their ups and downs a
Mhm.
lot, but one of my favorite versions of Severide is when he and Casey are on good terms, like when
Yeah.
they're friendly with each other.
Severide's
what
kind
I
of a
said.
basket case.
Happy Severide is wonderful.
Severide
Sad
goes
or-
through the guy goes through a lot.
He does.
Because when we first meet him on PD, it is, I mean, they talk about him, and Voight
Mhm.
says something to Aaron about how he knows that Severide is a loose cannon, or he calls him something that indicates that he's unstable. And then we see him after he's driven his car drunk,
Mhm.
and then it's just him falling apart at the seams. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the first episode of Fire, I was like, oh, so he's just a jerk then. Okay. But I've seen him with Aaron, and he's not always like that.
He's not always a jerk. I'm telling it's if he is happy, he is like the best and you will adore him. If he is mad or sad about something, he's an ass. I mean, he just is like, and so I go back and forth. He is not, and this will blow people's mind, but he's not my favorite. Sorry, but he's not.
I mean, he's
Um,
pretty, but
He's definitely pretty, but he's like that jerk, but not in a good way.
mhm.
Because we know sometimes I like him to be a jerk, but he's too moody. It wears
No,
me
you
out.
don't like jerks. You like psychotics. There's a
Well,
difference. It's like psychotics can't help themselves. They don't have a
that's what it
choice.
is.
But
Yeah.
jerks choose to be a-holes.
I like a little like I don't know. I like a little attitude from my men, but I need you to not
I
be
mean,
that moody all the
I don't know
time.
about you, Eve, but all I'm thinking right now is Rafe.
Well, he's an exception to the rule. He's not my normal type. My normal type is Adam Ruzek, who's kind of fiery, kind of has like, a temper sometimes, but deep down he's got a great heart. That's my type.
Is Casey's first name Matt?
Yes.
That confused the crap out of me.
Look,
Because I was
it
like,
is-
wait, what? Because I knew he was Casey before I started watching the show, but then they were calling him Matt, and then I thought I had it wrong. And then they said Casey, and he turned his head, and I was real confused. Matt Casey,
is-
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, Matthew Casey. Yeah. But no, like it cracks me up. Like, I don't do it on Med, obviously, because they're Dr. So-and-so, or they're just their first name. But you'll hear me. Like PD and Fire, I will sometimes call them by their first name.
Mhm.
Sometimes it'll be their last name.
I've noticed.
It depends on the character for me. With Casey, I go back and forth between Matt and Casey.
It's always Casey.
But
for
then
me.
like with Joe, like I call him Joe. And then Herman, I always call Herman. I never call him Christopher.
Oh gosh, no.
And I think the only person who ever calls him Christopher is his wife. Everyone, literally everyone on the show just calls him Herman. And for a while I was like, wait, who's Chris? Who's that? And then I realized, oh, that's Herman. Okay. He has a first name.
Well, Mouch too. I think only Trudy calls him by his first name, like
It's his
Yeah,
first name.
only Randall
Randall.
McHolland.
He's called Mouch because have you heard that part yet? Half man, half couch. Because he's like always just like chilling, like yeah.
Yeah, when I first heard his name, I was like, I am like maybe 90% sure that's not his real name. So I can't wait to hear that story.
I can't imagine with anything other than Mouch. I do like the episode on PD where it was Haley's 10th. And Trudy was like, by the way, I love Platt. I cannot wait to talk to her next week or next time. But when Platt said she'll plan it, and Jay's like, or Adam said, if she plans it, it's just gonna be in their basement with stale food, and Mouch cooking up stale food, watching the game on the TV, and the way Trudy just stares after him as he walks away. But that's how I view Mouch in my head, is that.
She's another character that like Trudy on PD is so different than Trudy on Fire, but in the best way. She's so loving and caring to Mouch
Because
that
she's
it's,
not a
like,
sergeant
wild.
on Fire. She's
It's
she
just
still
weird.
is, but she doesn't have to have that image of herself at the front
Yeah.
desk in PD, or that she does in PD that she has in Fire.
It's crazy.
I love both versions of her though.
I do too.
We'll talk
She's
about her
amazing.
next time.
So Fire has a lot of crossover with PD. Now, on the actual seasons of Fire, when you're actually watching Chicago Fire, do you see a lot of the other shows on there?
It's about the same as the others, I think. I don't think
Yeah,
it's a whole lot.
On Fire, we
You see a lot of Antonio, but that's because, it's
see a lot of Antonio at first because his sister is one of the
Gabby, yeah.
is one of the paramedics. we see crossovers a bit between PD and fire because there are a lot of the Severide is really into fire investigation. He's really into arson. Like that seems to be his niche.
To be fair, you're not saying he likes to start arson with fire. He just likes to investigate.
Yeah, he's really into investigating like fires. So there was a small storyline where he was transferred to the Office of Fire Investigation for a little while. So that really is his niche. Like he's really good at investigating and everything. So there are times when he'll see something fishy and then Chief will tell him, okay, we'll go ahead and call PD. And then sometimes we'll see, I would say it's usually either Adam or Haley.
It's usually not Adam,
that we see.
unfortunately.
Adam we saw a bit of at the beginning, but lately it's been Haley who'll come over.
Haley, get out of here.
And I see her, I'm like, get out of here with Haley. I want to see Adam or even Jay I'll take, but just send Haley.
Kim's my girl.
Well,
Haley.
Kim will show up every once in a while. There was this one episode I remember where they had an issue with another cop.
Mm-hmm.
And then they called Kim over to see if she could help them mend fences. And she was like, oh, yep, I've worked with him. He always blames all of his, like everything on everyone else. And then they were like, okay, well, do you think you can help us with this? And then she looked at them and said, can you tell by my tone that I've had my own issues with him? No, I can't help you.
Talking about character crossovers, like, and it's funny though, because what I hate now that, I didn't watch them like I was supposed to, like Eve did. Like I watched them in their groups. There are like relationships that happen on one show with a character from another show, and you have no idea that they even existed. Like Antonio and like Brett are like pretty serious. Like, for a little bit.
Is Brett the blonde?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she was gay.
No, that's Shay. Okay, the new blonde, the one that's right above your head right now. Like that
I
comes
thought that
in.
was the girl who was gay.
No, because she's gonna die.
She
The
dies.
gay one dies or she dies.
No, Shay dies.
Okay.
Jay dies at the beginning of season 2, and then that's when Brett
comes
starts.
in.
Yeah.
But then also Brett like sleeps with Roman. Do you all remember this? Just like one time. Gross.
Roman with anyone is gross. I'm sorry. Can we talk about least favorite characters next time also?
And
clarify real quick that people hate Roman not because of the actor or because of his character, but because of the problems he presents for Bruzak. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, no, the actor's fine. I just don't like the character at all. And I definitely don't like that he messed up Burzak, but that's okay. But then Jay also, then no one even remembered this when I was putting in the chat. I'm like, why is Jay on fire? And they're like, what?
I hadn't
is undercover and like has a relationship with Gabby. Like they start dating.
I had to look that up when you mentioned it because I did not remember that at all. But now that I remember that storyline, when because I did start Med first, so I saw a bit of Jay when he came to the hospital and everything. So then I saw him on Fire, and I was like, wait, how come nobody knows who he is?
Yeah,
like,
I was confused too.
I was like, how is he undercover? Don't they know who he is?
Yeah, I know. Not yet, anyways, right? But then the same thing, like the other way around, Kelly is sleeping with Aaron, but that's not mentioned on Fire. Like it's only happens on PD, so it gets really confusing.
See, since I watched Fire and PD at the same time, I don't remember which was on which show.
It was only on PD because I even mentioned it, and Shelby's like, "No, they never." I'm like, "Yeah, they are." Same thing.
Just barely though. They didn't put a lot in of it.
Not a whole lot.
It was one episode, and then they talked about it after that.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But Jay also, remember, he takes like Natalie out on dates on Med. We don't hear about that on PD, which I think is gross. I don't know why he ever did that anyways, considering your brother's like madly in love with her, but whatever.
Yeah, that was yucky. When that started happening, I was like, leave her alone.
Jay, he wants to propose with like your grandmother's ring. Like, let's not like take her out on a date, please.
So he just want to marry everybody that he dates?
Oh no, Will wanted to propose. Like Will, like Natalie is his love of his life kind of thing,
Is Natalie Tori DeVito?
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm not sad that she's gone. I haven't missed her.
Yeah.
Was she also on Teen Wolf?
No, she was on Vampire Diaries. Dr. Meredith Phil.
That's what I'm thinking of. Yes, that's
Yeah.
because when I think I get them mixed up because I know she's on med,
Mhm.
but then I also she's also a doctor.
Plays a doctor there.
And
And
so,
she plays
like,
a nurse, Nanny Carey, on One Tree Hill. who
but
used
when
to
I
be a
think
nurse,
of
right?
her as a doctor, the scene that's in my head is when she's stealing the vampire blood to make people better. And I'm like, I can't get that out of my head, but I know that that's not a supernatural show.
I mean, Natalie would do the same thing though. She's kind of shady like that. So
So on Fire, what do we see most of on Fire? Is it arsonist? Is it an even mix? Is it because there was the first season, the first episode of the first season is there is a fire it starts off with, but then they also go to a bridge and help a lady out of a car.
I think it's a mix. There's a lot of stuff.
Fire is more episode by episode,
Mhm.
but they do have big arson cases.
Mhm.
And then that's how they tend to tie in that's how they tend to do the crossovers with PD, because the PD people will sometimes help them investigate. But since Severide is such a good arson investigator, they have been throwing that in a lot more. But
It's a lot of out in the field though, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, all the time.
So like we said, this is just our first episode of Fire or Chicago. It's our first episode on Chicago that we're talking overview of the shows. There are 26 seasons that we tried to condense into one little teeny tiny hour. And I think we've hit that. I think we did a pretty good job keeping it focused on the shows, but we could talk forever on these.
Forever.
These are long. It takes a long time to go through these, to binge watch them. It takes a long time, but here's the thing, people. Now is your chance, because now you have 2.5 months of summer to
Mhm.
catch up before it starts premiering again in September. So
can
binge
do it.
watch Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, get all caught up, get all the shows watched so you can dive into the new episodes in September, because
We got some cliffhangers, y'all. Like, it's gonna be good stuff.
and it really helps to watch them live as they are meant to be viewed, in case there are crossovers, in case there are things that happen episode by episode that mix. So do that. Might take a long time, but it's amazing. It's worth it. Our next episode that we're talking about is going to be about characters, and that, I gotta be honest with you guys, that one might be longer than an hour,
And
because
it might be a lot of Adam Ruzek. So just
Be prepared.
also a lot of Kevin Atwater, a lot of Alvin.
Dr. Halstead,
There's a lot. So we love these.
Shelby
people. We
gets
love
on
these
here.
characters.
lots of Severide. So we'll just see.
So tune in next week. Make sure that you're checking out our episodes, and you can subscribe to our channels, please. By the way, our YouTube channels, we would like you to subscribe to that. If you watch our episodes, give them a thumbs up. Make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're helping us out so we can keep giving you content you want to see. And we will see you on Wednesday for our Chicago characters. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Hey.
For our listeners craving more, you can search for all 16 of our groups on Facebook by searching Family Fan Club. Come on over and join the conversation. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok under Fandom Family Chats. We try to always make sure to have something that will entertain. Of course, we'd also love your feedback, the good and any bad. And you can provide that by emailing us at familyfanclub2021@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for our website coming soon, where you'll be able to buy FFC merch and merch about some of your favorite TV shows with some favorite sayings and images. We're also working toward hosting a Comic-Con style event in 2024, where some of your favorite fandoms, cast, crew, and fans alike will come together for a fun-filled weekend. You can find those announcements on our website, coming at you soon. Keep watching and listening, and as always, don't forget to share and subscribe.